And as always, I just like to start with a little humor. And there were several different ones of these from parents asking, their kids about their day and what they're doing, and students, the child responding to go check it on their blog, to teachers. There was one I think that the teacher asked, write me an essay on your summer vacation, and one of the students was like, "Didn't you just read my blog?" You know all about that. So interesting how it's true in some cases, and how things are changing, and how can we reconcile with that? How can we make sure there is a good balance of that person-to-person, face-to-face communication, and that online communication that is so prevalent. So we're looking at that, continuing our discussion with regard to discussion boards, and then bringing in the conversation about blogs as well. So we'll start this evening with the short prayer that most of us, I believe, say in our schools fairly regularly. So take a moment and bow our heads. Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to ask for reward, save that of knowing that I do your will. All right. So, our goals this week in this session, we're going to take some time to kind of dissect and understand the similarities and differences between blogs and discussion boards. I know some of that came up a little bit in our own discussion boards in this class, but kind of looking at, how are the platforms similar? How is assessing them similar and different? Their overall goals and effectiveness, how those are similar and different. And so we'll take a look at a shared, it's within Google Drive, but it's a sort of a slightly different platform, but a collaborative document, which we will all add to in just a few minutes when I share the link. Then we're also going to look at, again, continue the discussion with regard to best practice strategies for implementing and assessing discussion boards, and also take a look at some of the information that was shared so far this week with regard to blogs. I have a quote that I'm going to share with you all in just a moment for us to kind of chew on and discuss and reflect on. I would like for you to bring and share your questions and reflections with regard to discussion boards and blogs. And I do have the KWL chart that we had started last week, so I can pull that up. We can take a look at it and see what questions you might still have, things that were unanswered, or new questions that may have come up since last week's meeting. We'll do our shared collaborative doc and then still have some time for Q&A. Hopefully I won't forget, but there is a slight conflict that I have next week, Tuesday, with our meeting. So if we can find another common time, that will be great for next week. Otherwise, there are some other ways that we can have this meeting. It will be asynchronous versus synchronous, but I'll discuss that at the end. And as usual, at any time, if you have questions, you can either chime in because there's only 3 of us on, or you're welcome to post it in the chat. All right, so for sort of our first discussion point here, there is a quote that I want you to think about and then sort of share if you agree, disagree, or just kind of what your initial thoughts are. Let you read it silently. So education is evolving due to the impact of the internet. We cannot teach our students in the same manner in which we were taught. Change is necessary to engage students, not in the curriculum we are responsible for, but in school, period. Agree, disagree, thoughts?
Well, I definitely agree that we can't teach in the same manner as we were taught. Okay, that's weird. I can hear myself. But I'm kind of trying to mull over what she means by engaging students not in the curriculum but in school. I'm not sure that I understand what she's saying.
Hi everybody, can you hear me? I'm Jim.
Yes.
Okay, I got my microphone to work finally.
Well, it's nice to hear your voice.
Thanks. That quote strikes me as interesting because you know, I don't see our job as teachers as fundamentally different from how it was 3 decades ago. I just see it as tweaking how we engage our students in a way, you know, maybe their problem isn't access to information like it might have been for us. But that's the job of a teacher anyway, is to reach the students where they are. So I don't know.
Right. Does she mean by in school it's like more of a global thing or, a community-wide thing? I don't know why I'm stuck on that one sentence, but
Well, I think in in my opinion, when I think about this or when I process it, is that a lot of times teachers are really focused on just what's happening in their classroom. Um, and while that works for having students engaged, sure, in your classroom, we want them ideally to want to come to school regardless of anything. You know, they're there at school and engaged because they want to be.
right.
I'm getting feedback. Suzanne, do you happen to have headphones?
I do have headphones on.
Interesting.
I'm gonna disconnect them and reconnect, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, because I just put some on because I thought maybe it was me. Do you all think that, so I know, Jim, you mentioned just this a little bit, but that students even still learn the same way that we did or that we were taught, or is that changing and is that different?
I, yes, I think they may be learning differently, but I don't really see the job of a teacher as being fundamentally different. You know, as teachers, our job is to reach our students and engage them, and maybe that means doing a few different things now than it did a few decades ago, but I see that role as fundamentally the same.
Makes sense. Any other points of contention or experiences with this? All right, I'll take that as a no. Um, no, Kimberly, we cannot hear you. Heard you earlier, I think. Not now. You have a good connection.
Is that going to work? Oh,
Yes.
I have feedback now. So I changed my microphone. I found out how to do that. Yay. I was just going to say that I think teaching the curriculum and how we teach it with the blended learning, I'm still grappling with connecting with students and using the iPads. I think they're valuable tools, but I think I'm not really sure where I'm grappling though, because part of it is they're not connecting with me because they're playing around with the iPads, or that they can if I let them distract themselves. And then on the other hand, it's a valuable tool. If they have a great activity or they have something meaningful that they're doing, then they're experiencing really good learning, getting out to the internet, getting some good connections going on. So it depends on, it's kind of like what Jim was saying, it depends on how you're using it. There's different ways we can teach with connecting with students, but I don't think I have that all figured out yet. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, it makes sense and it's fair, and I think definitely that it's an ongoing process, especially as we know technology is ever evolving and changing. Um, and I think finding those few things that work for us and that do have an impact on learning rather than being full of distraction per se. And I wonder too, something that always strikes me as a question that I still constantly have and struggle with is are students actually excited about using technology for learning rather than personal and sort of entertainment use? Because I work with a different population, I work with adults, and so I just wonder what experiences you all have with that.
I'm really sorry. I actually missed your question. My kids came in and opened the door. So I took my headphones off so you wouldn't hear me.
No worries. No, my question was just, what reactions do students have to using technology for learning rather than for their own personal social media entertainment use? Do you find that sometimes they do just want to use paper, pencil, books, and have a standard sort of instruction learning environment, or are they really yearning for the use of technology and for more technology in the classroom?
I think it's both, and I think it depends on the content too. Like, even my own daughter, she really wants to use pen and paper for her math learning and math class, but if doing graphics or figures, then she's happy using like the iPad because you can draw the figures, you can use colors, you can annotate really easily. And then in my class with teaching biology, I do use a lot of diagrams and figures, graphs, and the students also annotate and color code things. Even they're like before, if I were teaching them how to maybe use a traditional outline to take notes, so to speak, they like to do that now too because they can highlight keywords, or they can use different colors for keywords. So it's their own, not all of them do it, but they do, and it's their own way of keeping themselves engaged.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Dan left us.
I don't think a student is typically more interested in using technology for learning than for socializing. But I don't think that's the fault of technology. I just think there's no more hesitation to using the technology than there is to engage the learning otherwise, in traditional means. So
Right.
I think they're open to it to the same extent that they are open to learning generally.
Got it. Makes sense. And I just wonder because I know a couple of times when I was in the high school Jesuit classroom, I had a couple students at times that were just like, oh, we just learned how to do X last year, and now they're already making us use this technology or try it this way. And I would tell them like, oh, I kind of feel the same way you did. Like I spent 8 hours at a PD training last year to learn the smart board, and now we're introducing iPads. And so I think there's a learning curve for all of us involved.
Right.
And obviously, as the younger generations come up, they'll have had more experience than per se like our juniors and seniors right now who have had limited sort of experiences in the classroom anyway with technology.
Right.
All right. So then sort of moving forward, looking at last week and then this week's material and information, I just want us to go around and sort of share one thing that you learned about discussion boards and blogs, and one thing that you already knew that was affirmed by what you read and what you experienced.
Well, one thing I learned, or that I feel comfortable with now that I didn't before, so I'm going to call it a learning, is how to assess discussion boards. I was really uncomfortable with that, and I think that between the adult discussion boards, our discussions, I have shared that I have a lot of honors bio students, and the thought of assessing all of them on discussion boards or blogs completely overwhelms me. But in like chunks and assess the fact that they are doing what I want them to do on the discussion board, rather than maybe reading every single one of them, I can live with that, and I like that. And then maybe doing the second assignment, or having a follow-up assignment that's more like a reflection, or them asking a question that would be more like a homework assignment, which I would do anyway. That is that I can be comfortable with that, because that's something I would already do. So I think that's something that I learned. Affirmed is that having a discussion or using a discussion board can be engaging in the class, and that it's okay to do it during class time.
Good, thank you, Kimberly.
One thing that I learned was the distinction between discussion boards and blogs. I knew that they were two things that were both online and being used commonly, but I never really had that straight in my head. So that was one thing I learned. And then one thing affirmed, I guess, would be that when giving students an assignment to post, that the more specific the directions you can give, the better off everyone would be. And thanks to the posts that I saw from everyone, ideas and ways to use checklists for evaluating discussion board participation.
Thank you. Yep. Good. Yeah, like a discussion board post that sometimes we take for granted what we think we're communicating versus what students actually process, or we give these great directions in class, and like I said, they go home and all you want them to do is post a reply or to upload an assignment, and sometimes you'll just be surprised at the different types of responses that you'll get because students just don't read fully or misunderstand it, or there's just that lost in translation moment that happens. So definitely best to be as explicit and as clear as you can. Suzanne, I don't think your audio is connected, but if you wanted to type anything, you're welcome to. While she's doing that, any Jim or Camilla, do you guys have any questions you're still sort of grappling with regard to discussion boards or blogs?
Yeah, what websites or platforms do you find most helpful for discussion boards?
So for me, I'm mostly used to using the Moodle one. So if your school has a learning management system like Canvas or Haiku or Blackboard, I prefer those. I use those in my college classroom because I can easily assess it and it goes straight into the grade book. And students can see those right away. I don't have to upload, a whole spreadsheet of student names and emails, etc. But it's already all built in. That's what I use. I don't know if other folks have tried other things.
Okay. Is there any freestanding software that your school wouldn't have to be part of? Because we don't use Moodle at my school, so I just wondered.
Mm-hmm. Kimberly, were you saying?
Oh, I use Canvas, and so I probably will try the discussion board in Canvas. But before our school bought Canvas, I used Edmodo. Do you use anything like that? Because that has a discussion board also built in it, and I had tried that once before also. It's not linked to the gradebook, but it has the discussion board feature. That was free, so you could set that up, even if you don't use it for the other features, to do a discussion board.
Yeah, Jim. So that is one. I know that they had sort of the standard news feed similar to Facebook, but I didn't know they had a discussion board. So that might be something to look into. Odmodo.com. I know there were a couple others. I'm pretty sure I have a list somewhere. So I'll get that out to you. I know other
thank you.
Suzanne posted a question. So I think a discussion board, Suzanne, for your question would be okay, unless you're thinking about, a weekly research question or topic that comes up often, that teachers are answering. and sort of giving a longer response to like a frequently asked question. If it's just more of a dialogue that you want to have, then I would say go with the discussion board. Yeah, there were a couple of questions on the discussion board, AWL chart. One that came up, Wilma posted this, and I know she's not here, but I think it's something that we haven't addressed that might be interesting to talk about is, she says, besides posting topics, guidelines, and questions, what is the role of the teacher? Kindergarten discussion board. So what are your thoughts on this?
In the discussion board, I think part of the role of teacher is to encourage the dialogue. If it's not moving, ask a new question, but also to watch for students who are inappropriately responding. That came up a couple times in other discussions that we've been having, but I think that's really important.
To point out students who are on the right track. Good. Yeah, I sometimes find that, and I myself do this too, is that I don't often, in the online environment, really praise students and say, you did a good job. That was an excellent reflective response. I liked when you said X, Y, and Z. To keep those students that are really engaged in the discussion board engaged. Otherwise, they think, oh, the teacher's never checking this. She doesn't know. She's not paying attention. Why should I bother? So I think, a good point, Suzanne, is to point out those who are right on track. I think part of our role as a teacher is to help model the behavior that we want seen online. And I also think that not taking over the discussion board. I've seen teachers sometimes, want to post to every single thing or, really sort of take control of the conversation. And ideally, I think we want it, again, something to be the student's own. All right, and let's see here. Any other questions? Were there any strategies for discussion board topics or prompts that you all found that you hadn't considered before that now you might want to use in your own classrooms?
Well,
The
since I haven't really
checklist?
used any, that would be good. I didn't understand how to use the checklist in the discussion board. You mean for assessment?
That's what I was referring to, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you have a list of what you're, it's very similar to a rubric, but I just kind of see it as a more watered down version of a rubric.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, and any other thoughts or feedback that you all want on the discussion board assignment that you are thinking about implementing into your classrooms?
I guess, is it fair to say for a discussion board, you always want to aim for a like higher level thinking kind of question? Whereas, other homework assignments could be more review or lower level fill in the blank kind of stuff?
I would go ahead and say yes to that, only because you don't really want something that is concrete, black and white, has a yes or no, right or wrong answer, perhaps. Because again, you really want it to be a conversation. You don't want it just to be they post one time and then they can go and never come back to it. So ideally, you want something that they're going to have to kind of chew on, think about, reflect on, and really process. Which usually, yes, those higher level thinking. Yeah, there's thoughts or experience on this. All right, so since we've done some pretty good discussion on discussion boards, I want us to take some time and kind of dissect, the similarities and differences between discussion boards and blogs, since I know that some of it is new to some folks, and then I know that most of us probably haven't really used one or the other in the classroom, but might be interested in doing so, and just kind of understanding what the different purposes for each one is, and and what they might be good for. Just if you're grappling with kind of which one should I try or what should I do. So I have a collaborative document. I'm going to post the link in the chat. Just give me one moment. Right. So you can go to it, and if you just double click where it says text, you should be able to type. I'm going to attempt to share my screen, but I know last time we had some difficulty with that. So if you'll just go ahead and go to the chart, like selecting the link, you should be able to add text there. Obviously, one side discussion boards, what's very distinct to that. The other side, what's distinct to blogs, and in the middle, what similarities do they share? With regard to either assessment, implementation, what they're good for, how they can be used in the classroom, etc. I'm able to access it.
It's asking me for a password.
Oh, goodness.
Well, or to create an account. It wants my name and email and password.
Usually if you have a Gmail,
Sign up. I'll try sign up with Google and see what it does.
Yeah, usually if you have a Gmail Google account, you just sign in that way and it'll. Like that. SNK. Let's try this. There we go. Type it in. Jim, are you still having issues?
No, I got in. I just clicked on Google and then accept.
Okay. Yeah, the Google add-on, it'll show up in your Google Drive, and it's called Lucid Chart. I just found it to be a little bit easier than Google Docs with regard to creating charts and graphs. Yeah, it's just the free trial subscription. I don't have a paid or anything like that. This is just a simple sharing type of document. That's all you need for today. Now let me share my screen. I think we're on. If you're having difficulty adding text within the actual box, feel free to just grab a T on the left-hand side and drag it in, and then you can add text using a new text box. Just for about another 2 minutes or so. About 30 more seconds or so. All right, so someone else still typing. While you finish that up, I'm gonna take a screenshot of it so we can see it together and kind of talk about what we shared and what we think. All right, so I think there were a couple of folks still writing, but this is what I got a moment or two ago. So I know here I already noticed in discussion boards, someone mentioned that they disagree with whoever wrote student-driven and think the discussion boards are more teacher-driven. You want to elaborate or kind of expand on that?
Wait, before we do that, can you tell, how do I get back to the, I can hear everything, but I'm not on the main page for Click Meeting.
Sure. So usually Click Meeting is like its own window, so it might be hiding behind your current browser.
Yeah. And I found that, but it's like the login page again, which I thought was weird. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, that is weird because you are connected because obviously I hear you.
Yeah. So maybe I'll just keep listening. I don't know.
Okay. It's bizarre. Well, now mine just did something where it's not letting me. Oh, minimize the screen. Okay. There we go. I'm not sure.
So sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so thoughts on whether discussion boards are more student-driven versus teacher-driven?
Well, I think I was feeling like they were student driven, but that's because I think once the teacher posts the question, then my goal would be for the students to do the talking. So that's why I wrote student driven.
Makes sense. And it also depends too, I think, on how you set it up.
Mm-hmm.
If you say this is a forum or discussion board for, homework questions or homework help or whatever the case may be, and just let students kind of be in charge of that, then that's obviously different than one where you say there's a prompt, you need to respond, etc.
Right.
Okay, so good point again. So, all right, it's not posting yet. Maybe Click Meeting feels overloaded right now. Not sure what's going on. And so then for the star similarities, obviously some of the basic things, they're both online, they're both for communication. In my opinion, ideally, they're both best assessed, using a set criteria, whether that's a checklist or a rubric, something along those lines. So you're not just saying, oh, this feels like an A. You can't, it's hard to kind of debate that with a student who's questioning their grades, lower grades perhaps. Okay, sure. Yeah, that makes sense, Susan. Yeah, same thing with blogs. I think depending on how you use them, you can either restrict them just to classroom use. You can allow them to be open and available to the World Wide Web. Versus discussion boards, usually are very limited to that classroom experience or those classroom students. I always see successful blogs as those that are very thematic, a fashion blog or a cooking recipe blog, one that really focuses in on one topic or one theme, which I know can be maybe a little difficult to do in our classrooms. But again, if you're kind of looking at a unit of study and that's how you want to use it, then that might be an interesting approach. So thoughts on which one might work better for you? or neither. I mean,
I guess I'd like to try both. I'm not sure yet.
okay. 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 Well, if there's any resources that I can provide or that you're thinking of that, more information that you want on anything, please let me know because I'm happy to go digging and find those items, to kind of help you decide what might work better or how you might want to implement either one. Later this week, there's going to be a couple links with examples of student and teacher blogs. So feel free to kind of dig through some of those and see some examples and see if any of those kind of strike you as something you might want to try, their format. And again, just feel free to send your questions my way or to the whole group.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're at 5 till the hour. I know we've had some audio issues and some things, so I apologize for that. With the feedback, it can be a little distracting. But thank you again for logging in tonight and for joining us. Hopefully you were able to kind of get something out of this, even if it was just some sharing of ideas and just kind of helping you process through what you're hoping to accomplish in your classroom. As I mentioned this week, we're going to keep looking at blogs and how to assess them, how to implement them, types of blogs, etc. And by the end of the week, hopefully, sharing out some examples of blogs that you found useful or interesting or effective. But as I mentioned, so last week I have kind of I have a conference that I'm going to in a myriad of different things. So basically both Monday and Tuesday evening I will be unavailable. But I may have some time. I will have some time early Thursday evening. Wednesday evening is wide open, as well as Friday. So thoughts or preferences for a meeting time next week?
I can do most days as long as it's at 8 o'clock Central or later.
Okay. This is Thursday. Any preferences?
Oh, I can actually do Wednesday next week. I cannot do Tuesday next week, so I was going to be emailing you that anyway.
Okay.
I can't
all
do
right,
Thursday
so,
though.
all right. That's fair. Okay, so I'll sort of ponder that the next couple of days and send you all just a revised meeting time for next week. Probably either Wednesday or Thursday. I think Suzanne's lost connectivity. She's saying hello. But yeah, I'll send out a note and then not sure if it'll impact Wilma or Michael or not, but I'll let everyone know what day works. And so yeah, so we'll probably do it at the same time, just a different day of the week. That works. Okay. Okay, great. Good. Any last questions, comments, thoughts? Concerns?
Thanks for all the different samples you post.
Sure. Next week, if I don't have a guest speaker, then the week after, we will have Megan Doherty talking about back channels in her classroom. So that should be really a good presentation. But again, I kind of have to see what her schedule looks like, if she can do next week. If not, definitely the week after. All right. Well, thank you all again for joining us. I will share the recording of this in a couple of days as soon as I can download it and upload it to YouTube and all that good stuff. And I will share it with you all. Feel free to email me any questions, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.